When most people hear the word philosophy, they imagine something distant. An old man, wearing strange robes, asking impossible questions that seem to have nothing to do with everyday life. To many of us, philosophy feels like a subject that belongs in dusty libraries or college classrooms. Interesting, perhaps, but not particularly useful. Aristotle would have completely disagreed. More than 2,000 years ago, he believed philosophy had only one real purpose: not to make people sound intelligent, not to win arguments, but to help ordinary people live better lives. That simple idea is one of the reasons Aristotle is still considered one of the greatest thinkers in human history. He was born around 384 BC in the ancient kingdom of Macedonia. His father served as the royal physician. So from an early age, Aristotle grew up watching someone carefully observe the human body, diagnose problems, and search for practical solutions. That way of thinking stayed with him. Instead of accepting easy answers, he became fascinated by how things actually worked. Why does one plant thrive while another struggles to grow? How does a tiny egg become a living chick? Why do some societies flourish while others fall apart? And perhaps the biggest question of all, why do some people seem to live fulfilling lives while others remain unhappy, even when they appear to have everything? These weren't abstract puzzles to Aristotle. They were real questions with real consequences. As a young man, Aristotle traveled to Athens to study under Plato, one of history's most famous philosophers. For nearly 20 years, he learned from one of the greatest minds of the ancient world. But Aristotle wasn't content with simply repeating his teacher's ideas. He respected Plato deeply, yet he believed philosophy should spend less time imagining perfect worlds and more time understanding the one we actually live in. Later, Aristotle was invited to tutor a young prince named Alexander. History would remember him as Alexander the Great. After Alexander began conquering much of the known world, Aristotle returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike many teachers of his time, he rarely stayed seated while teaching. He walked. His students walked beside him. They discussed ideas while moving through gardens and shaded pathways. People eventually gave them a nickname: the Peripatetics, the Walkers. It's a fitting image, because Aristotle believed wisdom wasn't something you discovered by sitting still forever. It came from observing life, questioning it, testing your ideas against reality. In many ways, Aristotle thought more like a scientist than a philosopher. He watched nature carefully. He studied animals, politics, friendship, art, human emotions, even conversation. Nothing seemed too ordinary to deserve his attention, because he believed every part of life had something to teach us. Today, we often separate knowledge into different categories. Psychology studies the mind. Biology studies living things. Politics studies governments. Art belongs in museums. Philosophy belongs in universities. But Aristotle saw them as parts of the same puzzle. To understand what it means to live well, you have to understand people. To understand people, you have to understand habits, relationships, communities, emotions, choices. Everything is connected. And that's what makes Aristotle feel surprisingly modern. He wasn't interested in helping people escape the real world. He wanted them to understand it more deeply, because only then could they improve it. Throughout his life, Aristotle kept returning to one central question: not, what is the meaning of the universe, but something much more personal: how should a human being live? That question guided everything he wrote. It shaped his ideas about happiness, friendship, art, character, leadership, even persuasion. For Aristotle, philosophy was never meant to stay inside books. It was meant to shape the way we speak, the way we think, the way we treat other people, and ultimately, the way we choose to live. And perhaps that's why, more than 2,000 years later, his ideas still feel less like ancient history and more like practical advice for anyone trying to build a meaningful life. What does it actually mean to live a happy life? It's a question people have been asking for thousands of years. Yet most of us still chase the same familiar answers. We imagine happiness is waiting on the other side of a promotion, a bigger house, a perfect relationship, or financial freedom. We tell ourselves that once we achieve one more goal, everything will finally fall into place. Aristotle looked at that way of thinking and came to a very different conclusion. He believed happiness isn't something that happens to us. It isn't a reward that arrives by chance. And it certainly isn't something we can buy. Instead, Happiness is something we gradually build through the kind of person we become. For Aristotle, the quality of your life depends on the quality of your character. That may sound simple, but it changes everything. Instead of asking, "What do I need to own to be happy?" Aristotle encouraged us to ask a different question. What kind of person do I need to become? His answer was found in what he called virtues. Today, the word virtue can sound old-fashioned, almost like something from a history book. But Aristotle wasn't talking about being perfect or pretending to be morally superior. He was describing the personal qualities that allow someone to live well, build healthy relationships, and make wise decisions even when life becomes difficult. He identified many virtues, including courage, patience, honesty, generosity, friendliness, modesty, and self-control. These weren't random personality traits. Together, they formed a blueprint for a balanced human life. But Aristotle's most fascinating insight wasn't simply that virtues matter. It was that every virtue exists between two unhealthy extremes. He called this the golden mean. Think about courage. Most people assume courage means being fearless. Aristotle disagreed. If you avoid every challenge because you're afraid, that's cowardice. If you rush into every danger without thinking, that's recklessness. Neither leads to a good life. Real courage lies somewhere in the middle. It means recognizing fear, but choosing to do the right thing anyway. The same pattern appears almost everywhere. Imagine someone who never speaks up because they worry about what others think. They remain quiet, avoid conflict, and constantly hide their opinions. Now imagine someone at the opposite extreme. They interrupt everyone, dominate every conversation, and mistake arrogance for confidence. Neither person has found balance. The virtuous person is honest and confident without feeling the need to overpower everyone else. Friendliness works the same way. Someone who tries to please everyone eventually loses themselves. Someone who refuses to care about anyone else's feelings often ends up lonely. Healthy relationships grow somewhere between those extremes. One of Aristotle's favorite examples involved conversation. He noticed that some people have no sense of humor at all. They become offended by every joke, contribute little to conversations, and make social situations feel uncomfortable. On the other hand, there are people who seem unable to stop joking. They make fun of everything, ignore boundaries, and will embarrass anyone if it gets a laugh. Neither extreme creates meaningful connection. The truly enjoyable person knows when to joke and when to be serious. They make others laugh without making anyone feel small. In other words, wisdom isn't about always choosing more. Sometimes it's about knowing when enough is enough. This idea feels surprisingly modern. Today, we're constantly encouraged to think in extremes. Social media rewards the loudest opinions. Success is often measured by bigger numbers, faster growth, and endless ambition. We admire people who push everything to the limit, as if balance were a sign of weakness. Aristotle would probably see things differently. He would remind us that lasting happiness isn't found in living at either extreme. It's found in learning how to respond appropriately to each situation. Not too little, not too much, just enough. For Aristotle, that quiet balance wasn't ordinary. It was the foundation of a truly good life. If virtues lead to a good life, the next question is obvious. How do we become virtuous? Aristotle's answer was surprisingly practical. He didn't believe people were born with strong character, nor did he think someone could become a better person overnight through a single decision. Instead, he believed character is built through habit. Every choice you make, no matter how small, shapes the person you are becoming. One honest decision makes the next one a little easier. One act of kindness makes kindness feel more natural. Over time, repeated actions stop feeling like effort and begin to feel like part of who you are. The same is true in the opposite direction. Small acts of dishonesty, impatience, or selfishness may seem harmless at first, but repeated often enough, they slowly become part of our character. That's why Aristotle saw moral growth as a process rather than a moment. He also believed this should change the way we judge other people. If good character is developed through practice, then people who lack virtue are not simply bad. More often, they are people who never had the right guidance, encouragement, or opportunities to develop better habits. That doesn't mean harmful actions should be ignored. People must still be responsible for their choices. But punishment alone rarely creates better character. Lasting change comes through education, practice, and the steady repetition of better actions. For Aristotle, becoming a good person wasn't about waiting for inspiration. It was about choosing, day after day, to practice the kind of life you hoped to live. Eventually, those choices would shape not only your habits, but your character itself. Today, many people think of art as a form of entertainment. We watch a movie to relax after work. We listen to music while driving. We read novels to escape reality for a while. Aristotle believed great art had a much deeper purpose. In ancient Greece, the most celebrated form of art wasn't comedy or music, it was tragedy. Thousands of people would gather in enormous open-air theaters to watch stories filled with betrayal, loss, guilt, and death. To us, it might seem like a strange way to spend an afternoon. Why would anyone choose to watch people suffer? Aristotle answered this question with one powerful idea: catharsis. Catharsis means emotional cleansing. When we watch a tragic story unfold, we experience emotions that are often difficult to face in our own lives. We feel fear as we imagine ourselves in the hero's place. We feel compassion as we witness someone make a terrible mistake or endure unimaginable loss. These emotions don't weaken us. They prepare us. A great tragedy reminds us that misfortune can happen to anyone, even decent people with good intentions. Sometimes a single poor decision, or even simple bad luck, can completely change the course of a life. Recognizing this makes us less judgmental and more compassionate toward others. It also encourages us to face life's uncertainties with greater humility. Aristotle believed that was the true purpose of art, not to distract us from reality, but to reveal it. The stories that stay with us are rarely the ones with perfect endings. They're the ones that help us understand ourselves, deepen our empathy, and remind us what it means to be human. For Aristotle, great art wasn't simply something to admire. It was a quiet teacher, helping us grow wiser every time we were willing to truly feel. Aristotle believed that no one can live a truly good life alone. We all need friends. But he also noticed something important. Not all friendships are built on the same foundation. In Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle described 3 kinds of friendship. The first is friendship based on pleasure. These are the people we enjoy spending time with. We laugh together, share hobbies, watch sports, travel, or simply have fun. There's nothing wrong with these friendships, but they often change as our interests change. When the enjoyment disappears, the relationship sometimes fades with it. The second is friendship based on usefulness. These relationships exist because both people benefit in some way. It could be a business partner, a professional contact, or someone who helps you achieve a goal. These friendships can be valuable, but they usually last only as long as the benefit remains. Then Aristotle described something much rarer: true friendship. A true friend isn't someone who agrees with you all the time or tells you what you want to hear. It's someone who genuinely wants you to become the best version of yourself. They celebrate your successes as if they were their own. And when you struggle, your pain becomes their concern as well. These friendships require trust, honesty, and time. They also require vulnerability. By caring deeply about another person, you make yourself more open to loss and disappointment. Yet Aristotle believed this risk is exactly what gives friendship its extraordinary value. A true friend expands your world. They challenge your blind spots, strengthen your character, and remind you of who you want to become when you've forgotten it yourself. For Aristotle, the greatest friendships weren't built on convenience or entertainment. They were built on shared virtue. And in helping each other grow, 2 people could build a life that neither could achieve alone. Have you ever wondered why the best idea doesn't always win? Why do intelligent people sometimes lose arguments, while someone with weaker reasoning manages to persuade an entire crowd? Aristotle asked the same question more than 2,000 years ago. Living in Athens, he watched public debates where politicians, lawyers, and ordinary citizens competed to influence public opinion. Again and again, he noticed something surprising. People rarely made decisions based on logic alone. Their emotions mattered just as much. Fear, pride, hope, embarrassment. These invisible forces often shape people's choices more than facts ever could. Many philosophers, including Plato, found this frustrating. They believed people should simply follow reason. Aristotle took a different approach. Instead of complaining about human nature, he chose to understand it. That decision led him to develop what we now call rhetoric, the art of persuasive communication. For Aristotle, Persuasion wasn't about manipulating people or tricking them into agreement. It was about presenting good ideas in a way that people could genuinely hear and accept. He believed that if you want others to listen, you first have to understand what they're feeling. Are they afraid? Do they feel ignored? Is their pride being threatened? If you ignore those emotions, even the strongest argument may fail. Aristotle also understood that attention is fragile. Long lists of facts are easy to forget, but a memorable story, a vivid example, or even a touch of humor can make an idea stay with someone long after the conversation ends. His lesson remains remarkably relevant today. Whether you're speaking to a friend, leading a team, teaching a class, or sharing ideas online, success isn't determined only by what you know. It's also determined by how well you connect with the people listening. Because in the end, ideas don't change the world simply by being true. They change the world only after someone is willing to believe them. More than 2,000 years have passed since Aristotle walked the streets of Athens. Yet many of the problems he tried to solve are still the problems we face today. We still search for happiness. We still struggle to build good habits. We still hope to find genuine friendships. We still wonder how to communicate our ideas in a world full of noise. Technology has transformed almost every part of our lives, but human nature hasn't changed nearly as much. That's why Aristotle's philosophy continues to feel surprisingly relevant. He never promised a life without failure, pain, or uncertainty. In fact, he understood that those experiences are part of being human. Instead of asking how we could avoid life's difficulties, he asked a better question: how can we become the kind of person who is able to face them well? His answer wasn't hidden in complicated theories. It was found in the choices we make every day. Choosing courage instead of fear. Choosing honesty instead of convenience. Choosing balance instead of extremes. Choosing friends who help us grow rather than simply entertain us. And choosing to practice these virtues again and again until they become part of who we are. Perhaps that's Aristotle's greatest lesson. A meaningful life isn't built in one extraordinary moment. It's built through thousands of ordinary decisions, repeated with intention over time. Maybe philosophy isn't meant to give us all the answers. Maybe its greatest gift is teaching us how to ask better questions and how to live a little more wisely because of them. If Aristotle were here today, he probably wouldn't ask how successful you've become. He would simply ask, are you becoming the person you're capable of being? And perhaps that's still one of the most important questions any of us can ask.